Can I tell you guys a story that I just learned about Nick? I haven't actually talked about this publicly yet, so maybe this will be a nice little treat for people who stuck around. I got a message from someone the other day. I'm gonna read it. I'm not gonna show it on the screen, but I'm gonna read a portion of it. Let me just get up the. Let me get it up in front of me so I can see it. I got a message from someone the other day, and it was this beautiful note. Like it was a several paragraph message that they sent. They DM'd me on Twitter, and they talked about how they've been like this is a Groyper, and they talked about how they've been watching my content and that it's really helped them and that they've learned a lot, and they were just really complimentary of it, and it was very, very nice and very, very sweet. But part of the message said this: I've been a silent fan of Nick since AFPAC 2, and I even remember the time he shared Mike Harlow's infamous post about you in his Telegram account. I didn't pay much attention, but your name really stood out. Then fast forward to the autumn era. He's talking about the Autumn Groyper Twitter account. And I was surprised you and him had these funny back and forths. It was only then when I checked out your YouTube channel and saw your content and have been hooked to your arc with the Groypers and eventually branched out to some of your other content and Substacks. So the thing that got my attention about this was the line, I even remember the time that Nick shared Mike Harlow's infamous post about you in his Telegram. Now, this was a surprise to me because, recently there was some controversy around, and this, of course, has to do with Aaron, my friend who went to prison for a crime that he didn't commit, but he had to plead guilty because the federal government railroaded him, and that's just sometimes the way life goes. So my friend went to prison for a very long time. He got out a long time ago. This too long didn't read. Several years after he got out, a band of trolls, one of whom is named Mike Harlow, put all this information out onto the internet and did it to get to me. They did it to hurt me. So they put out information. Karlyn knows this person who went to prison for what sounds like a really terrible crime, but he didn't actually do it. He just pled guilty to it because he had to because of the situation. I've talked about it before if you want more information about that. But so it's funny because right before I went to AFPAC 4, this guy, Lucas Gage, started running with that smear campaign to try to say, Nick, she's a pedophile. She's all this, she's all that, she's all this other thing. He was sharing this Mike Harlow thing that Nick posted to his Telegram years ago, apparently. And at the time, it almost seemed like Lucas Gage didn't think that Nick knew about this. And that's why Lucas Gage started making this whole big thing right before AFPAC 4, like trying to alert Nick to the fact that Karlyn once knew someone who was in prison and he better disinvite her from AFPAC and all this stuff. And so I actually wasn't even sure if Nick knew about that. I thought he probably did, just because it got blown up so massively. I mean, we're talking about like millions and millions of views. This space is actually pretty small. And so like if stuff is getting blown up by that, people usually hear about it. And you gotta understand from the time they started, putting this smear campaign out until AFPAC 4, which is the one I went to, it had been 2 years. Like people don't really care about this anymore. But I was like, did Nick really not know about this? Like Lucas Gage is acting like an idiot. But did Nick really not know about this? And so I was like, I didn't know how it was possible that he hadn't heard about it. But at the same time, I was also just like very confused why Lucas Gage had just been such an asshole about it. And then I get this note the other day from this Groyper saying, I even remember that time that Nick shared Mike Harlow's infamous post about you in his Telegram account. So I went back and looked. And anyone can find this in Nick's Telegram. Just search my name. Nick Fuentes posted Mike Harlow's tweet in his Telegram account about me and my friend that went to jail. And he said, who would have thought? See, Nick didn't like me back then. I don't know exactly what I did. Well, I did I did one time say on Twitter that Nick wanted to get fucked in the ass more than obviously any other gay man I'd ever seen in my life, but I didn't really mean it. I was just the Groypers were attacking me about something, and I didn't really mean it. I just wanted to say something hurtful. I want the Groypers to lead with policy and drop the race shit. I found myself in a space with them recently, and their rhetoric was awful, but their economic policy was phenomenal. It was the chef's kiss. I mean, the Groypers are a bunch of rowdy boys. I don't know that you'll ever get them to give this up because they are definitely rowdy boys. So I found out that Nick Fuentes always knew about that smear campaign. And I'd like to go back, like, I don't know why actually Nick hated me so much back then. I mean, I certainly suspect that he thought that I was probably just like a fraud, just like every other fucking person that leaves the left. So I think he probably thought I was some sort of fraud and like, probably thought I was Jewish or like something. I don't know exactly what it was. I may have said something. I don't know what it was, but Nick obviously didn't like me back then and he was taking a victory lap with that smear campaign, but I'm not mad about that. I don't really care. Like, I mean, like I said, I kind of figured he knew anyway. But like, what I find so funny is, I just think, like, I guess like all I could think is like life is very funny because it's almost like you come full circle sometimes, and the oddest things sometimes happen. Who would have thought that almost 2 years ago exactly? This happened almost 2 years ago exactly. Who would have thought that 2 years ago, Nick Fuentes and I would hate each other so much that we would be shit talking each other on the internet? And I don't even know why he was paying attention to me in 2022 because I wasn't relevant. I was purposefully trying to stay irrelevant just to, do my socialism stuff. So I don't even know why he was paying attention to me, which was even more interesting. But who would have thought that he and I would be shit talking each other on the internet 2 years ago? And then almost come just completely fucking full circle. Where he invites me to his event, I'm watching his content, sharing it with my community. We're playing nicely. I think Nick was talking about how there was a communist as the keynote on Monday. I think I take that fucking W. Nick wants to tell people that guy's a communist? W. But just like, who would have thought? Like, honestly, and it just like life is so funny like that sometimes.